Hi, this is Donna. Welcome to DD Paper Crafts. Today we're going to be making this watering can style gift bag. The bag is 5.5 inches in diameter at the widest point and 3.5 inches at the top. Obviously you can adjust any of the measurements to suit, and it's 6 inches high. So without further ado, let's get started. For the sides of the can, you will need 6 pieces which are 3.5 inches by 6.5 inches. Along the 6.5 inch side, score at 6 inches, and along the 3.5 inch side, score at 3 inches. Make a notch mark at 1/2 inch and 2.5 inches. Take your stylus and ruler and score from the 2.5 inch mark down to the point at the bottom where the score lines intersect, and on the left hand side from the 1/2 inch mark down to the bottom start of the score line. Using your scissors or your trimmer, with the 1/2 inch tab at the top, cut away along the score line to remove the excess like so, and then cut from the top of the 3 inch score line down to the bottom edge of the cardstock in line with the bottom 1/2 inch tab. Fold and burnish all of the score lines. Cut away the bottom right hand square and cut a slight wedge into each of the glue tabs. You'll end up with 6 pieces which look like so. You can at this stage add your DSP or wait until you've added the can pieces together. I've cut my DSP to 5 3/4 by 2 3/4, and along the top 2 3/4 edge I've marked at 1/2 inch and 2 1/4 inches, and then cut away from the pencil line to the bottom right hand corner, and again from the pencil line to the bottom left hand corner. You'll then have 6 pieces which sit on your panels like so. To assemble the main body of the can, I'm going to use tape. However, use your preferred adhesive, add it to the side glue tab and lay your next piece on top. Aim to get the bottom score lines aligned, as you can always trim the top if needed. Join up your first and last sections to complete the body of the can. So that's the main body of our can. I'm now going to add on my DSP, and I want the handle and spout section to sit on top of the DSP. I'm going to use my construction glue as this will add some more strength, although the base cardstock I'm using is 270 grams. Whilst that's drying, we're going to work on the additional elements. For the spout, you'll need one piece which is 4.5 times 4 7/8. Score along the 4 7/8 side at 4 3/8. Score along the 4.5 inch side at 1, 2, 3 and 4. Then fold and burnish all the score lines. With the long sections running vertically and the 1/2 inch tab at the bottom, cut away the bottom right hand corner and then cut a wedge into the long glue tab. Add glue to the long glue tab, fold over the 1/2 inch tab and the first section, and fold over the right hand section and secure in place to create a long rectangular tube. Place your piece on your mat so your join is at the bottom. Ignore the tabs here, I've cut those incorrectly. Take your ruler and line the top of your ruler so the edge of the tube is against the 3 inch mark on the ruler, and make a pencil mark at the beginning of the ruler. Take your stylus, and we want to score between the pencil mark and the 1/2 inch score line. So we've just added our 3 inch score line. Fold your tube over so the end of the 3 inch score line is now in the middle. And make a pencil mark where the top of that score line intersects with this score line here. Fold your tube over so your 3 inch score line is at the back, and now score from the pencil mark you've just made down to the 1/2 inch score line. So if we look at our piece, we can see that our score lines meet. Lay your piece down, so my pencil marks are at the bottom, and measure along 1/2 inch from the pencil mark down towards the 1/2 inch score line here. So I'm going to make a second pencil mark. So I've got my score line here, which went from 3 inches down to the 4 3/8, and now I've got a new 1/2 inch mark. And I'm going to cut from the bottom corner of the card across to the 1/2 inch mark. So my rectangle now has a diagonal end. Fold your piece out and cut up each of the score lines to the 1/2 inch score line. This is creating the glue tabs to stick the spout onto the can. Cut a wedge into each of the glue tabs. Fold in each of the glue tabs and then adjust as necessary the wedges so the tabs fold in and the ends of the tabs aren't catching on the side of the card. You want to make sure there's no way that the glue tabs and the inside are being impeded by one another. So the arm of the spout would be adhered to the side of the can like so. So now the spout's ready, we're going to create the end nozzle section. You'll need 4 pieces of cardstock, 2 1/4 inches by 2 1/2 inches. Along the 2 1/4 inch side, score at 1 3/4. Rotate so the tab is on the bottom, and along the 2 1/2 inch side, score at 2 inches. Rotate so the tabs are on the left and on the top, and at 1 inch score down to the 1/2 inch score line, and at 2 inches score down to the 1/2 inch score line. Take your ruler and stylus, and we're going to score from this point here down to here, and from this point here down to here. So our piece looks like this. Take your scissors, cut along the right hand diagonal up to the 1/2 inch score line, and then up the straight score line. Turn your piece around and do make sure you remove your score lines. Turn your piece around and cut up the next score line within the 1/2 inch tab. Move along to the second score line and cut diagonally up to the top right hand corner. Rotate and remove the bottom section. Cut off any excess as necessary. Fold along the score line and remove the excess on the top. Burnish that down thoroughly, and you'll end up with a piece which looks like this. To finish our spout, take your 4 pieces, add glue to the long glue tabs, and join up the 4 pieces. Fold outwards the bottom tabs and line the score lines at the bottom up, as you can always trim along the top. Take your long spout section, lay the nozzle over the top so the 1/2 inch score lines line up with the top edge, and using your chosen adhesive, fold down the 1/2 inch glue tabs to glue the 2 pieces together. Set that to one side, and now we'll work on the base of the can. If you have hexagon dies, find the one nearest the size you need and use that. I'm going to put my can into the shape that I want, lay it on my base cardstock and draw around the outside edge of the can, and then I'm just going to cut along the pencil lines. So this is the shape of my base, and if I need to, I can always trim off the edges of any overhang once the base is stuck down and the glue's dry. I'm going to flip the can over, fold out my tabs, and one by one work around the base, folding in the tabs and adding a dab of glue where the ends of the tabs overlap. Then I'm adding my construction glue and sitting my base piece on top. Depending on what you plan to put in the can, you may find you want to add 2 layers for added strength. I'm just going to push that down from the inside to make sure that it sits securely in place, and I'm going to leave that to dry. I'm now going to add my spout. You decide where you like the look of it, but I'm adding mine so it's about 1 inch from the bottom of the can. If you want to change the angle of the spout, you can change the angle here so that it's not as steep. If that was shallower, the spout would have a different look. So play around and see what preference you have. I think at this point it would be easier to use hot glue or tape for an instant grab, but I've got my construction glue here, so that's what I'm going to use. Make sure you get the piece in the middle of the can section and that it's sitting nice and squarely. I'm just going to hold that in place for a few minutes until I'm sure it's taken. Whilst that's drying, I'm going to make the handles. This is a piece the length of A4 cardstock, and it's 2 7/8 inches wide, which I've scored at 1 inch and 2 inches. I've then just folded it over and added glue in between each layer and secured it in place. Whilst the handle's drying, I'm going to go around and cut away any excess overhang on the base. My handles are now dry, and I've gone along it very thoroughly with my bone folder to create a nice curve in the piece. Obviously you want your handle to be on the opposite side to the spout piece. I've manipulated my handle into the shape that I want, and I've placed it on the side of the can and made a pencil mark on the can piece where the end of the handles are going to sit. So here's my pencil marks. I'll give you the measurements for mine, but obviously you will create your own shape. So the bottom one is 2¼ inches up from the bottom edge, and the top one is 1 3/8 inch down from the top edge. I want to make sure the handles stay on securely, so as well as adding some glue, I'm going to add brads. I've laid my handles back in place and just marked with a pencil inside the handle where I think my brads are going to sit. Using my screw punch, I'm going to make the holes in the handle at both ends, and then I'm going to lay my handle back in place and mark through the holes with a pencil onto the can. Using my screw punch again, I've then made the holes in the side of the can. I'm going to add some glue onto the ends of the handles, but not too much, and then put my handles in place using the brads. So here's the handle secured. To cover the brads inside, I've cut 2 discs with my circle punch and just glued those over the top to tidy them up. I've also decided I want to add a handle on the top, which I'm also going to add with brads. My handle strip is 9 inches long and 1¾ inches wide, scored at halfway across and folded in half. I've then added some DSP on top, which is 7/8 inch wide. Again, I'm going to use the screw punch to add the holes for the brads. These are 1/2 inch in from the ends. Then, with the same process as before, I shall put my handle in place where I want it and mark with a pencil where my holes need to be. So my holes are 1/2 inch from the end of the handle, and my holes are 1/2 inch from the top of the can. So there's an additional handle, and then that can flip either backwards or forwards so you can get in the top of the can. So this is what it looks like so far. I've now decided I want to add a rose onto the top of the spout, so I need to have some way to attach a circle, which is 3½ inches in diameter, onto the top. I've just cut a support which is 1½ inches wide and 3 inches long, and I've scored at 1/2 inch either end. You can see I've cut the holes in mine, but ignore the holes and follow my instructions now in the video. Add your DSP to the top of your circle, add glue to the middle of your support, and put your circle centrally on the support. And then when you punch your holes, assuming you're going to punch holes, you'll punch them through all 3 layers. Otherwise, you have the support showing through the holes, and I didn't like the look of that. But that's my personal preference. Once I've cut the holes through, I'm then going to add glue to the side tabs and add the tabs to the inside of the top spout. I'm just going to get on with my decorations now and then I'll be back. I've now finished the decoration. I've added some paper flowers from my stash just to add some dimension. I've added some water droplet beads to the top of the rose. I've decided to leave the arm uncovered as I think that adds a nice contrast, but I may decide to add some DSP at a later date. I've added some discs over the brads for the handles on the inside to tidy that up. And I think given the fact that this is hand cut, because all of the pictures I'd seen were made on electronic die cutting machines, I'm really pleased with how this has turned out. There is quite a lot of space inside, and you can certainly fit quite a few small gift items. And all in all, this has been an enjoyable make. I hope you've enjoyed today's video and give the project a go. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel. And until next time, thanks for watching.